Spread over thousands of square kilometers, the Pacific Islands region is rich in diverse cultures and traditions. And yet, it is a region that is still coming to terms with the concept of universal human rights and equality for all. Meet Louisa. Louisa works hard as a mother and selling vegetables in town to make money for her family. Louisa's husband, Chone, works hard at work too. He is considered a nice guy, a family man, and is a respected member of his community. But Chone thinks his job is more important than Louisa's. He thinks he should make all the decisions in the home because he is the man of the house. And sometimes, Chone comes home and hits Louisa because he thinks he's entitled to do this. One time, after being beaten up by her husband, Louisa went to see the village elder to ask for help. The elder told her that in their culture, the woman must obey the man. She should not challenge the authority of her husband, even if he becomes violent. Louisa couldn't understand how her pain and suffering could be part of her culture. Whose culture was it if it did not protect her from harm? Was it really hers? Did a husband really have a traditional right to beat his wife?
So traditional Pacific societies in relation to violence against women have either tolerated, accepted violence that have been inflicted on women and girls, but also has encouraged a culture of silence and fear about talking out about, the violence that women and girls have been experiencing either within their families or within their communities.
It is more people protecting their own benefits, because there are lots of privileges and benefits that are enjoyed by a particular section of society when women are beaten and suppressed and so on. And I just believe that when people talk about culture and so on, we also need to look back at what was there before. And there were very good things for women and girls.
And more our community or our society is also showing that they're not accepting this excuse or justification that, culture and tradition, because of my culture and tradition, I should be able to inflict this violence on the female members of my family.
When the violence in Louisa's home continued, she went to see her church pastor to ask for help. The pastor told her that the Bible did not allow violence against women and children, but she should not involve the police or seek protection through formal channels. Instead, she should try to heal the problems with her husband through reconciliation. Heeding her pastor's advice, Louisa returned home, but the violence only got worse. What about religion? Do human rights exist in our different faiths?
Each person has equality with everybody else, and in the Christian sense, these are endowed by God. In marriage relationships, husbands have no right whatsoever to mistreat and to violate their wives. It is wrong, it is unbiblical, it is unchristian, and it is evil.
Faith plays a huge role in the life of an ordinary Pacific Islander. Faith-based communities have this role of ensuring that the concepts of humanity and the concepts of human dignity, which is also found in religious texts, are ones that will continue to be shared to the community so that the community can understand how to treat each other better.
Faith-based organizations across the Pacific have joined the chorus to uphold the rights of women and children and call for an end to violence. Churches and other faith-based groups recognize human rights as being an important part of religious teachings.
We are meant to relate to each other as dignified people. We are meant to relate to each other as persons with equality before God and before each other. And these are the teachings that must and need to be taught within all our churches.
Are human rights a foreign flower planted by Western culture? Are they really alien to the traditional cultures of the Pacific? Most Pacific Island communities live within a tightly knit fabric of faith and culture. The two have become inseparable in the lives of most Pacific Islanders. Although traditional Pacific cultures don't use the words human rights, the concept of a rights-based approach, emphasizing values such as mutual respect, compassion, and inclusion, has always been part of island cultures. And so, human rights are flowers with strong, deep roots throughout the Pacific. Pacific nations have also signed up to international legal agreements that protect human rights and have adopted national legislation and policies to protect those human rights. Those include legally protecting people like Louisa from violence.
So, as a result of that engagement with the International Human Rights Treaty system, Pacific Island states have that obligation, which they are legally obliged to then domesticate by national laws and policies. So, the potential role of human rights is to use human rights as a tool to create this enabling environment for development.
When human rights and women's rights are seen as one and the same, then women can be seen to have equal value to men. The cause of violence against women is the false impression that women are not as important in Pacific society as men. This is despite the fact that Pacific countries have committed themselves to international human rights treaties that state that men and women have equal value and should be treated equally.
There's the illusion to think that women's rights are foreign concepts that has no real bearings and relevance in the Pacific Island culture. In fact, all Pacific Island countries are now state parties to 2 out of the core 9 human rights treaties. States are actually creating national development goals and plans that has very strong human rights principles enunciated within the plans themselves.
To know the consequences of violence, as a result, they can act as a great barrier for women to develop. The whole purpose, as I see it, of human rights is to create that enabling environment for people to access education, work, health. These are basic rights which people have.
The United Nations has enshrined the rights of women and children in several agreements and charters, ensuring their rights are recognized and that they deserve to be free of violence. Representatives from around the world shaped these agreements, and they were endorsed by many countries in the world, including Pacific Island countries. In other words, every Pacific Island country supports the concept that men and women share the same responsibilities and rights. These rights are enshrined in the constitutions of many Pacific Island countries. Pacific countries have also put in place national laws that protect the rights of its citizens, including women and children, from violence. Despite this, some individuals in the Pacific still question whether human rights are a foreign flower planted by others. But human rights relate directly to many Pacific customs, values, and traditions. Principles that align with the concept of human rights often underpin the very foundation of Pacific cultures. But culture is sometimes wrongly used to try and justify violence against women and children, even though our community leaders tell us it has no place in our culture. In the Pacific today, half of the population are women. Women who hold jobs, are elected to public office, and teach the children who will someday become future government and business leaders. How can Louisa and thousands of other Pacific women fully participate in their families, their communities, or in their countries if they are not protected from violence? To support the rights of all Pacific women, there is an urgent need to recognize the violence that many Pacific women face. Together, Pacific governments, religious and community leaders can ensure that women and children are protected from violence. Whether the words used are human rights, decency, equality, or any number of words in Pacific languages and dialects, the result is the same. Women should enjoy the same rights as men. They should be protected from violence in the home or in the community. Pacific Island women like Louisa call on men, families, and communities to end family violence. they also call on Pacific leaders to give them the protection from violence they deserve and need to fully participate in the life of their communities. It is their right to play their role in Pacific culture.
Bible talk about love, to respect, and narwana peace. And this one not similar to principles for human rights.
En chimene anna teke awen ngete kata pojen ngete kan to karbina yonong daga rabina nanon we putte.
Em unin wan chong okon chongan remaja lo mantin majal kaur yawe em juj em e pai awde broji yawe ron chokron kainar majorot ko em pochen ya em e cholokal jigalongan jabarewat.